History was created in Indian corporate law last week when Tata Steel took control of Bhushan Steel, paying the bankers 35,200 crore rupees, or a whopping 70% of the loan owed by Bhushan Steel to the bankers. The resolution happened in less than 10 months of the case getting filed. That's the good news. Well, the not so good news is that of the 12 cases sent by the Reserve Bank to the insolvency courts last June, 11 have not been settled within the stipulated time of 9 months. Of another 28 cases sent by the Reserve Bank to the NCLT in December, only 10 have been admitted. Of the 4,000 cases, 4,000 odd cases currently looking for resolution under the insolvency and bankruptcy law, only 2,000 have been admitted by the National Company Law tribunals. So the question we are asking is, how successful is the insolvency law process? How do we improve it? To discuss them point by point, I am joined by Rajiv Vidhani, the Associate Partner at Kaithan & Company, Sandeep Parekh, Founder, FinSec Law Advisors, Deloitte's Uday Bhansali, Vijay Kannan, Chief Executive of the Indian Banks Association, and Behram Vakil, Founding Partner of AZB Partners. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me in this conversation. Well, first of all, Behram, to you, since you're in a sense the father of this process, would you say the insolvency process is a success or a qualified success?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lata. So I think, given that it is certainly early days yet, about 18 months, I guess, as you said, more success than not.
Okay.
But we have to see the first of the 12, and hopefully if we get through half of them in the next few months, then I would say it's certainly a success.
Okay. Well, let me get the banker's point of view then. Mr. Kannan, what would you say? I mean, we were expecting that of the 12 marquee cases, at least half of them should have been resolved by now. It's 10 months since June of 2017. Would you say the process has been successful? Bankers have got 35,000 crores.
In my point, I think it is a grand success. It's a great event. Because just look at it about a year ago, I think none of us actually were looking for any such solution. We were all talking about maybe another resolution or another process of structuring it. I think this particular IBC process has made it very clear, and these are early stages, as Behram was mentioning. We need to look at it, but I am looking at this as a very major positive development. Going forward, it may be a matter of a few days or a month or so, but I think the direction is very clear, and which we saw it almost 6-7 months ago also. Okay. That the direction was very clear. The way the ordinance was formed, I think it augurs good for the overall financial system. I think it's a great success, not only a mild success.
All right. Well, that's a very positive comment coming from the banker. But really, I'm still looking at the numbers, Uday. Of around 4,000 cases that are looking for a resolution, only 2,000 are at the moment under various stages of hearing or resolution. And the 9-month rule has not quite been adhered to, although the courts have said, okay, don't count the stay period, etc., etc. Effectively, it is not, the success rate is not very high. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think if you're very rigid about the 270-day rule on paper, yes, you may say that. But I think given the overall perspective in which this is being addressed, I think a few weeks delay is not really a big deal in my view, as long as we get a fair outcome at the end of this process.
I doubt if of these 12 cases, the remaining 11, even 3 more or 6 will be settled by June 30th. So then we will be 1 year into the process.
Well, I mean, Lata, stepping back from this, I think firstly, the very fact that, as Mr. Kannan said, the banking community is viewing this as a big success. And if I go back to our FM Piyush Goyal's tweet where he has really, expressed his satisfaction with the fair and transparent process and the IBC that's been run to achieve this outcome of 35,000 odd crores. I think it's a great achievement from where we were sitting. I think, sitting in COC meetings and having a ringside view of this, and as resolution professionals, I think the heart of the issue is a bit of ambiguity, which hopefully in the coming weeks the courts will help resolve. The key issue is that the preamble of the code talks of maximization of value. And we are dealing with bankers who are having to vote on various resolution plans, given the environment under which they operate. Typically, you find them public sector bankers. They are extremely particular about transparency, possibilities of allegations at a later point of time of favoritism. Therefore, the requirement to adhere to a process that's been laid out upfront and therefore very transparent, negotiations only with the H1 bidder. I would also like to point out, since Mr. Kannan is here, that the IBA has issued guidelines a few months back that negotiations should be only with the H1 bidder. Right? Now, under that environment, I think bankers can put their hands on their heart and say, hey, I have followed this process to the letter and in spirit. But yes, there is the preamble, which ultimately talks of maximization of value.
Yes.
So I think these are sort of at two ends of the coin. And there will be a handful of such cases where you will see value beyond a process. I don't think you're going to see a rush of cases where there's going to be equity. Please understand. Right? So we are having this debate, but it's not going to be a very long debate.
All right. Actually, let us pull up those graphics instead of the bank-wise. Let us pull up the argument that Uday is making. Maximization of profit versus sanctity of the process.
Correct.
As you're saying, sanctity of the process would require H1 bidder be called immediately. Maximization requires that, okay, even if somebody has bid late, call him because the banks are going to make more money.
So I think in the process, the rules will get tightened, that the person should be part of the initial expression of interest. He should have put in an LOI. You can't have someone coming in only at the end of the game where, say, the figures
when
get leaked in the media and the other bids get disclosed. So some kind of ring fencing will be done. And
actually, let me get...
I think there was a very interesting article on e-auctions at some stage to bring some kind of transparency once bids are technically qualified. I know Dr. Sahu of IBBI has certain views about this, but maybe that's a kind of a hybrid solution that one would need to aim for.
Okay, Behram, before I get to the other two participants, your thought on this itself. I mean, if you go the maximization of value way, then you are not sacred to the, you're not loyal to the process. What should we do to ensure that the process remains sacred and we achieve time-bound results?
Yeah, so I think, that is definitely paramount, because it can't be...
What is paramount?
The process. Because otherwise we are taking a very short-term view. We have thousands of cases to come. So if we do this and people lose faith in the process, and they feel that this is not, whether they feel it's rigged or whether they feel that it is, not comprehensible, then all the foreign investors who are today very keen, all the domestic players who are very keen, and all the success that we have created will come to naught. So I think the process definitely should be made paramount. And there is enough in the process that allows maximization of value. And as your article itself showed, that, just in those two cases, and if you include Binani, etc., we have had a wonderful success in terms of value realization, as Mr. Kannan also said. So I think it's better to play the game, because within a framework, if you feel that needs to be changed, I mean, Uday, etc., looking at this every single day, then we need to do that. It's a dynamic world. But we can't retrospectively change the rules in the middle of the game. You can't score a goal, outside the field.
Okay. No. So what should we do? I mean, do we have to amend the law? Sandeep, let me get you in on this. The problem is a late bid, for instance, like in the case of Liberty House, was admitted in the Bhushan Power and Steel case. And that's where the argument is coming. If you keep on admitting bids and say, oh, but then banks will get more money if you take someone even after the deadline is over. You stretch the process also indefinitely. What would your comment be on this issue? Do we need to make it clear in the law itself that the deadline is sacred?
Yes, I think the law is anyway very clear, and I completely echo what Behram is saying, that I think the rules have been set, they've been set in stone. Let's not play with the rules just in the name of maximization of value. So I think it's very clear what the rules are. It's been passed by Parliament, and I think we should kind of stick to the process, hold it as sacrosanct, and then let people. And we've seen, even despite those very strict timelines, we've seen huge values coming out. So I don't think the process is actually kind of damaging the values per se. And once people see them as sacrosanct, people won't play with the timelines. They'll kind of stick to the timelines which have been given. But once, as Behram said, if the goalpost can be anywhere in the field or outside, then anybody will come after 6 years also. The old process will, the old process of decades and years will come back instead of months and weeks.
Oh yes, I am going to come to that question of whether this can go at any point in time the DRT way or the SARFACI way. But before that, let me get Rajiv Vidhani into the conversation. Rajiv, yes, this is a big success, as Kannan and Behram and others have said, that when did the banking system last get 35,000 crores in 10 months? I mean, if you look at that, this is, of course, unprecedented. But if we say that, oh, it happened only in one case, then it looks like it's fallen short. What would your own answer be? Where are the roadblocks to improving the insolvency process?
See, as everyone has already pointed out, we are learning, we are evolving. We are looking at one major case where roughly 35,200 crores have been would be paid to the lenders very soon, and even the operational creditors would be getting around 1,200 odd crores. So we are looking at around, as far as the financial creditors are concerned, we are looking at around 70% recovery. If you look at the statistics before this, we have not seen this kind of success in such a large case. So the code will take its own time to evolve. The processes will be set, and the judiciary will also be passing judgments which will align us to the right direction. But of course, there are, like for example, the 14-day criteria which is there for admitting the case, that is being extended, but merely by a few weeks. But obviously, we looking at the number of cases, and once these 12 cases see some form of success, obviously the push will be to put more cases into the process. And therefore, I think there are two things which I can really think of, and which can really help, is obviously strengthening the courtrooms. We need to include more number of judges, so that the delay is not on account of lack of strength at the courts. Courts are doing a phenomenal job. I think increasing the strength may really boost this. And I can also think of where we have seen challenges, where there's some authorities which are there we have seen the goods being confiscated even during the CRP process. They're trying to recover the monies. We don't know whether once these cases are accepted, whether we will see challenges from the government authorities, because not all authorities are coming forward and filing their claims. So I think directions to the government authorities to come forward and submit their claims can really help. And so
one minute, Rajiv.
Steps are taken, that would really help.
Yeah, I will come to the other issue in just a bit, but just your last word on this profit maximization versus sanctity of the process. Do you think the law itself needs to be rewritten in some fashion? After all, some amendments are expected sooner or later. The committee has already given its recommendations. Do you think something needs to be written in the law to ensure that sanctity of the process is further sanctified? Or do you think this has to be a goal which the NCLTs have to give themselves?
See, I mean, the process fairly identifies a lot of guiding factors, and as far as this process is concerned, of the resolution professionals setting out the timelines within which EOIs have to be submitted and plans have to be submitted is already in place. If there is a bid which comes during that time period, so that is something which the RP and the COC and the court, there is enough commercial wisdom which is sitting there. So I think rewriting per se, I would not think is required. So I mean, there is a 270-day process, and within 270-day process, if the RP is able to resolve the cases and he's able to get the maximum bid possible, that's good for everyone. So I think rewriting per se, I don't think would be required.
All right. Gentlemen, let's take a break on this note. But Rajiv has raised the issue of the number of benches and the bandwidth of the benches. So that discussion in a minute to all my panelists. Do we need to double the number of benches very soon?